Today, in the heart of New York City, where all eyes are on towering skyscrapers and bustling crowds, a group of people with distinctive masks has appeared, leaving many surprised and bewildered. They are Pussy Riot, one of the most famous punk bands and protest groups from Russia. But they're not here to perform music. They're here to protest against the oppression, violation of free speech, and political persecution they've endured for years. But why are they here in the U.S.? And what is happening in America right now that has prompted them to speak out? Pussy Riot is not the first protest group, but their presence here is not merely about attracting attention. They are sending a serious warning. Members of this group have lived in harsh conditions in Russia under the rule of President Vladimir Putin. They've been hunted, imprisoned, and threatened with their lives. But now, they're sending a message to America. That message isn't just about denouncing the totalitarian regime in Russia. It's a warning about an increasingly growing threat right here in America, the silence before political and social changes that could lead to irreversible loss. Act before it's too late. That's the message they are urging. But it's not only the American people who need to wake up. This also reflects a critical reality for the current U.S. administration. Under President Donald Trump, his policies and leadership have sparked an unprecedented wave of anger, prompting millions of Americans to rise up. His disastrous trade policies, confrontational stance with allied nations, and the heavy toll on the economy are reasons why the nation is now in a state of instability, not unlike what Pussy Riot faced in Russia. Thus, Pussy Riot's protest in America is not only a rebellion from those oppressed. It's a reminder for all of us about the dangers that a totalitarian regime can bring, not just in far-off countries, but right here in America. This raises a big question. Will the American people wake up in time to address the destructive events unfolding under President Trump's administration? Pussy Riot, originally formed in 2011 as a feminist punk rock band, quickly became a symbol of protest against Russia's authoritarian regime. Known for their provocative and politically charged performances, the group was never afraid to challenge the Russian government or criticize President Vladimir Putin. Their most famous act of defiance came in 2012 when they staged a protest inside Moscow's Christ the Savior Cathedral, calling attention to the church's support of Putin. For this act, 3 of the group's members were arrested and sentenced to prison for hooliganism motivated by religious hatred. Their arrest sparked international outrage, and Pussy Riot became a beacon for human rights advocates around the world. Despite their brutal treatment in Russia, being imprisoned, beaten, and hounded, they have continued their fight for freedom. But their protest is not just aimed at the Russian government anymore. Their journey has evolved into a global call for all citizens to resist oppression wherever it may appear, and their latest protest in the U.S. is a stark reminder of the dangers of political apathy and authoritarianism creeping into democracies. Pussy Riot's message resonates deeply within a country like the U.S., where the political landscape under Trump has raised serious concerns about the erosion of democratic principles. Russia, under Putin's rule, has made it increasingly difficult for dissenting voices to be heard. In recent years, the Kremlin has passed laws making it illegal to even speak out against the government, with harsh penalties for those who do. Anti-government protests have been crushed, with protesters facing imprisonment and violence. The situation has become so dire that even holding up a sign with no words can lead to arrest. For Pussy Riot, their protest at the cathedral was only the beginning of a long battle against a regime that is committed to silencing opposition by any means necessary. However, this isn't just a Russian problem. The erosion of civil liberties and the rise of authoritarianism are issues that can manifest anywhere if the people remain silent. Pussy Riot's protest in New York was a direct appeal to the American public, urging them to stay vigilant and engaged in the political process before they, too, face a situation where their freedoms are no longer guaranteed. It's a call to action for a country that once prided itself on being the land of the free, but where the foundations of democracy are now under threat by its own leader, President Donald Trump. The rise of Donald Trump as the 45th President of the United States marked a significant turning point in American politics. His administration has been characterized by divisive rhetoric, inflammatory policies, and a blatant disregard for democratic norms. From the very beginning, Trump's approach to governance has been unorthodox, to say the least. His America First policy, coupled with his aggressive stance on immigration, trade, and foreign relations, has polarized the nation and undermined its standing on the global stage. Perhaps one of the most controversial aspects of Trump's presidency has been his trade policies. The tariffs he imposed on China and other nations, justified by his desire to protect American jobs, have resulted in a massive trade war. These tariffs have had far-reaching consequences, including the loss of thousands of American jobs, the disruption of global supply chains, and the weakening of the U.S. economy. The financial markets have been in turmoil, with the Dow Jones and Nasdaq suffering significant losses. Trump's handling of the economy has been one of the key factors driving protests and dissent. As the financial markets have plunged and the cost of living has risen, many Americans feel increasingly alienated by the president's policies. Polls show that a majority of Americans disapprove of Trump's handling of the economy, with his approval ratings for trade policies and government competence at an all-time low. These policies, combined with his divisive rhetoric, have further fueled the anger and disillusionment felt by millions of citizens in response to Trump's policies and the escalating political and economic tensions. Protests have erupted across the United States. From the streets of Washington, D.C. to the university campuses of Berkeley and Columbia, Americans have taken to the streets to voice their opposition. What started as isolated incidents of dissent has now turned into widespread movements, with protests scheduled in all 50 states and mass gatherings expected in the nation's capital. The protests aren't just about Trump's trade policies. They are about the broader issues of human rights, civil liberties, and the very principles on which the U.S. was founded. From students marching against the deportation of their peers to senior citizens rallying for the protection of Social Security and Medicare, the protests have become a unified cry for a return to values of justice, equality, and democracy. The intensity of these protests speaks volumes about the current state of American society, where citizens feel that their voices are being ignored and their futures are being threatened by the very person they elected to lead them. Trump's policies have not only caused internal unrest in the U.S., but have also damaged the country's reputation on the global stage. His tariffs and trade wars have strained relations with long-standing allies, including Canada and Europe, and have prompted many countries to reevaluate their relationships with the U.S. Trump's actions have created a ripple effect, causing economic instability worldwide. Pussy Riot's protest is a direct reflection of the growing international concerns about the rise of authoritarianism in democracies. While their message was initially aimed at Russia, the group's call to action has become a global one. They see what is happening in the U.S. under Trump's leadership as a precursor to what could happen if people remain silent. They are warning that the same forces of nationalism, authoritarianism, and suppression of dissent that have taken hold in Russia could easily make their way into other democracies, including the United States. The presence of Pussy Riot in the U.S. serves as a stark reminder of the importance of defending democracy and the freedoms that so many have fought for. Their protest is not just a plea for help. It is a wake-up call for the American people. The situation in Russia is not unique. It can happen anywhere, even in a country as powerful as the United States, if citizens become complacent and fail to protect their rights. As protests continue to grow across the U.S., it's clear that the American people are not giving up. They are awake, and they are ready to fight for their freedoms. The question now is whether the government, under the leadership of Donald Trump, will listen to their cries for change, or whether the country will continue down a path toward authoritarianism. As Pussy Riot's message makes clear, silence is the enemy, and action is the only way forward. As protests swell in size and scope, the message is clear. Americans are not willing to stand idly by while their rights are threatened. The growing number of demonstrations across the country has become a testament to the power of collective action. Across every state, people from all walks of life are rallying for their voices to be heard. Whether it's a young student protesting against government repression or a working-class individual fighting for economic stability, the American public is showing up to resist. One of the most notable aspects of the current wave of protests is the way they transcend traditional political lines. From liberal strongholds like California and New York to conservative areas like Alabama and Texas, the demonstrations are attracting a diverse group of people united by a shared frustration with the current administration. This unprecedented level of political mobilization suggests a profound shift in the way Americans are engaging with their government. They are no longer passive recipients of policy. They are active participants in shaping the future of their nation. The use of social media and platforms like TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter has been instrumental in amplifying the voices of protesters. With hashtags like #ResistTrump and #NoToTrump, organizers are able to reach millions, mobilizing crowds and spreading their message across the globe. The online campaigns, paired with the in-person protests, have created a synergy that has made the opposition to Trump's policies impossible to ignore. These protests are not just a response to one man's policies. They represent a broader rejection of what many see as a breakdown in democratic principles. With Trump's authoritarian tendencies becoming more apparent, Americans are rallying around the idea that no leader is above the law, and that democracy must be protected at all costs. The economic ramifications of Trump's administration are impossible to overlook. Under Trump, the U.S. economy has experienced sharp fluctuations, with significant drops in the stock market and rising concerns about a potential recession. Trump's trade war with China, coupled with his aggressive tariffs on other nations, has led to widespread instability in global markets. The market's volatility has affected everything from retirement savings to the cost of everyday goods. One of the most visible signs of the economic toll is the performance of the stock market. The Dow Jones and Nasdaq have both experienced major drops, with trillions of dollars in market value lost. These fluctuations have caused immense anxiety for everyday Americans, many of whom are now uncertain about their financial futures. The sense of security that once accompanied investing in the stock market has been shaken, and the impact is being felt by people across the country. Trump's handling of the economy has also led to growing concerns about job security and income inequality. Many workers, especially in industries affected by the trade war, are now facing layoffs and reduced hours. Farmers, in particular, have been hit hard by the tariffs, with exports to China plummeting and agricultural prices dropping. The ripple effects of these policies are felt most acutely by those who can least afford them, further exacerbating the wealth gap in the United States. Despite these challenges, Trump's supporters continue to defend his economic policies, arguing that they are necessary to put America first. However, as the economic situation continues to deteriorate, the growing frustration among the American people is undeniable. Protesters are not only calling for an end to Trump's policies, they are demanding a shift toward economic policies that prioritize the well-being of all Americans, not just the wealthy few. Another major factor contributing to the growing unrest in the U.S. is President Trump's divisive rhetoric. From the moment he took office, Trump has used inflammatory language to stoke fear and division among the American people. Whether it's his attacks on the press, his inflammatory comments about immigrants, or his refusal to condemn white supremacists, Trump's words have consistently reinforced the divides in American society. The power of words cannot be underestimated. Inflammatory rhetoric has the potential to not only divide a nation, but also to incite violence. Trump's refusal to take a strong stance against hate groups has emboldened extremists, and his continued belittling of political opponents has made it harder to have constructive conversations about the future of the country. His words are a direct reflection of the toxic political climate that has come to define his presidency. The rise in hate crimes and violence during his time in office has not gone unnoticed. From the deadly Charlottesville rally in 2017 to the recent wave of anti-immigrant sentiment, Trump's rhetoric has acted as a catalyst for an increase in violence and discrimination. As the protests continue, it's clear that Americans are not just fighting against a set of policies. They are fighting against the culture of division and hate that has been perpetuated by their own leader. While the protests in the U.S. are growing louder, the international community is also closely watching the events unfold. Trump's policies, especially in the areas of trade and diplomacy, have sparked outrage and concern worldwide. His decision to pull out of the Paris Climate Agreement, his withdrawal from the Iran nuclear deal, and his frequent criticism of NATO have raised alarms about America's role in the global community. Countries like Canada and European Union members have found themselves in a difficult position, trying to maintain positive relations with the U.S. while also protecting their own interests. Trump's tariff policies have strained relationships with allies, and his unpredictable behavior has left many wondering if America will continue to play a leadership role on the global stage. The international fallout from Trump's presidency has created an environment of uncertainty and instability. Countries are reevaluating their alliances, and trade partners are looking for ways to lessen their dependence on the U.S. These changes will likely have lasting implications for the global economy, and the protests in the U.S. reflect a larger concern about America's future position in the world. Pussy Riot's presence in the U.S. serves as a powerful reminder of the importance of protecting democracy and standing up against authoritarianism. Their protest is not just about Russia, it's about the world. The members of Pussy Riot understand all too well the dangers of living under a regime that suppresses free speech, freedom of assembly, and basic human rights. They are fighting for their own survival, but they are also fighting for the survival of democratic values everywhere. In their protest in New York, they are urging Americans to recognize the threat that authoritarianism poses not only to Russia but to any country, including the United States. Their message is simple yet profound. Don't wait until it's too late. Speak out, act now, and protect your rights before they are taken away. As we continue to witness the growing unrest and protests across the United States, one thing is clear: the fight for democracy is far from over. Whether it's Pussy Riot's warnings about the dangers of authoritarianism or the cries of millions of Americans demanding change, the message is the same. Democracy must be protected at all costs. The stakes are high, and the future of the nation hangs in the balance. Will America rise to the challenge and safeguard its democratic principles? Or will it follow the path toward authoritarianism, as so many other nations have done before? The answer lies in the hands of the people, and it is up to each and every one of us to stand up, speak out, and fight for the freedom we hold dear. One of the most notable features of the current protests is the role that social media plays in mobilizing action and amplifying voices. Platforms like Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram have become crucial tools for organizing and spreading messages, allowing activists to bypass traditional media channels and directly engage with a broader audience. The hashtag #ResistTrump hashtag, which has become synonymous with the anti-Trump movement, is a prime example of how social media has transformed political activism. The speed and scale at which information spreads online have had a profound impact on how protests are organized and executed. In the past, organizing a nationwide protest might have required weeks or even months of planning. Today, with the power of social media, protests can be organized in a matter of days or even hours. This immediate communication has allowed grassroots movements to flourish and has given a platform to those who have historically been silenced. Moreover, social media has provided a space for people to share their personal stories, creating a sense of solidarity and unity that might otherwise be absent. By posting videos, photos, and testimonials, individuals are able to humanize the issues at hand, making the fight against Trump's policies more relatable to a wider audience. These online platforms also enable protesters to share their strategies, provide real-time updates, and connect with like-minded individuals across the globe, further amplifying their message. The digital age has allowed movements to transcend geographical boundaries, creating an interconnected web of activists fighting for a common cause. The protests against Trump are not just happening in the U.S. They are part of a global wave of resistance against authoritarianism and oppression. Whether it's through hashtag campaigns or viral videos, social media has been pivotal in organizing and sustaining the momentum of these protests. While social media has played an essential role in spreading the message of the protests, traditional media outlets are also a key player in shaping public perception. The way the media covers Trump's policies and the growing unrest in the U.S. significantly influences how the public understands the situation. In a polarized media landscape, how news is framed can either bolster or diminish the power of a protest movement. Television networks, newspapers, and digital outlets have all played a role in either amplifying or downplaying the impact of the protests. For example, coverage of protests in major cities like Washington, D.C., New York, and Los Angeles often draws national attention, further galvanizing the public to join the cause. However, certain media outlets with a conservative leaning may frame the protests as radical or unpatriotic, attempting to delegitimize the movement and discredit the demands for change. Despite the polarization, the media's role in covering the ongoing protests cannot be ignored. The power of the media to influence public opinion, provide a platform for dissent, and hold those in power accountable is undeniable. The protests against Trump are not only a direct response to his actions, they are also a response to the way the media has allowed his divisive rhetoric to dominate the political conversation. The protests against Donald Trump are not just an American phenomenon. They are part of a larger global movement against authoritarianism. Pussy Riot's appearance in the U.S. is an example of international solidarity, where activists from different countries come together to resist oppressive regimes, regardless of borders. The rise of global authoritarianism is a concern that transcends nationalities, and the fight for democracy is one that unites people worldwide. In countries like Hungary, Turkey, and Brazil, leaders with authoritarian tendencies have gained power, often undermining democratic institutions and curbing freedoms. The protests in the U.S. are part of a broader international resistance to these trends, a call to action for those who believe in the fundamental values of democracy and human rights. The fight for freedom is no longer confined to any one country. It is a collective effort to ensure that the principles of democracy and justice are upheld everywhere. The solidarity between protesters in the U.S. and Pussy Riot is a powerful reminder that the struggle for freedom is universal. As authoritarianism spreads, the voices of the oppressed must unite to fight for a world where liberty, equality, and justice prevail. From the streets of Moscow to the heart of Washington, D.C., the message is clear. We must stand together against tyranny, or risk losing everything we hold dear. As the protests continue to intensify, the future of American democracy is increasingly uncertain. The unprecedented nature of Trump's presidency, marked by his attacks on the media, the judiciary, and the very foundations of democratic governance, has left the nation at a crossroads. While some of his policies have been popular among certain segments of the population, the overwhelming sense of division and instability caused by his leadership cannot be ignored. The question that remains is whether America will be able to recover from the damage caused by Trump's presidency. Will the country be able to rebuild its democratic institutions and restore its standing in the world? Or will the forces of division and authoritarianism continue to pull the nation apart? The outcome of these protests may have a lasting impact on the trajectory of American democracy. If the protests succeed in pressuring Trump to reconsider his policies or even end his reign, it could signal a new era for the U.S., one in which citizens take an active role in shaping their future. If, however, Trump remains in power and the protests are suppressed, it could mark the beginning of a darker chapter in American history, one in which the very principles of democracy are at risk. The protests against Trump and the rise of resistance movements like Pussy Riot highlight a critical moment in history. It's a moment where the future of democracy is on the line. As citizens around the world stand up against oppression and authoritarianism, they are reminding us of the power we have to shape our own destiny. The question that now faces the U.S. is whether it will choose the path of democracy or succumb to the forces of division and authoritarianism. Will the American people rise up and fight for their freedoms, or will they allow their democracy to erode under the weight of Trump's presidency? As Pussy Riot's message makes clear, the time to act is now. The future of America and the world depends on the choices we make today. The power of protest, the unity of the people, and the will to fight for justice can change the course of history. It is up to us to decide whether we will be the generation that stands up for democracy or the one that lets it slip away. The protests that have erupted across the United States represent more than just opposition to one man's policies. They represent the desire for a more just and democratic society. They are a call to action, urging citizens to stand up against oppression and fight for their rights. The resistance is not just an American movement. It is a global one, united by the belief that freedom and democracy must be protected at all costs. As the struggle continues, it is crucial to remember that the fight for democracy is never over. It requires constant vigilance, active participation, and a commitment to justice. The protests against Trump, fueled by voices like those of Pussy Riot, are a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the enduring power of collective action. The future is uncertain, but one thing is clear: the fight for freedom will not be silenced.